drifting in Sonic games, one of the coolest mechanics that sadly isn't used as much today. Let's get to ranking every single drift. I'll be ranking the different versions based on 1. Control and feel, 2. Usefulness, 3. Cool factor, and 4. Stage design. Here is the ranking system. For each category, there are 10 achievable points. F tier, you need 0 to 11 points. D tier, 12 to 17. C tier, 11 to 23. B tier, 24 to 29. A tier, 30 to 35. And S tier, 36 to 40. First up is Sonic Unleashed. Control and feel. At first, the mechanic is hard, but once you master it, the drift feels so nice to pull off at high speeds. And for those who say it sucks, well, all I have to say is skill issue. Another thing that you can do with this drift is repeatedly move side to side, which makes Sonic pick up way more speed than usual. Scores are 9 for feel, 10 for usefulness, 10 for cool factor, and 9 for stage design, which puts Sonic Unleashed into the S tier. I will now talk about Unleashed little brother, Unleashed. This game has a very similar drift, but from what I played, I couldn't seem to do the snaking mechanic. Also, there are much fewer drifting segments in this game. However, one thing Unleashed does do good is the flow. Since the boost is a one-time huge boost of speed, instead of holding down the button for a continuous speed, the flow is very nice when you chain boosts with drifts into dash pads. Unleashed gets a 7 for feel, a 7 for usefulness, a 9 for coolness, and a 6 for stage design. This puts the game at a solid high B tier. Next is Sonic Colors. I'm gonna reach for the stars. For what is supposed to be an evolution of the mechanic, Sonic Colors absolutely shits on the move because the game reserves the move to automated sections. And even still, there are barely any of these sections, so overall, a huge wasted opportunity. However, in these segments, the drift does feel pretty good to control, just a waste of potential. Scores are 8 for feel, 4 for usefulness, 8 for cool factor, he still has the same animation as Unleashed, and 4 for stage design. This puts Colors into the B tier. Now we have Sonic Generations. Which is much more like Unleashed than Colors, because it has gone back to the manual drift, and has also incorporated the mechanic into much more of the level design, which is great. While many people prefer this drift over Unleashed, I don't actually like it. For starters, the drift has this weird bounce thing that happens at the start, which does not allow for the same snaking movement to gain speed as before, and in turn also adds a bit of delay to the move. But there is now a new thing where you can tilt the control stick to an angle on some segments to pick up a good amount of speed, such as in this one in Green Hill. Next, the animation is less cool as Sonic just turns into a ball, which I believe is far less stylish than him gliding across the ground normally. The move is also way tighter to control, which helps make sharper turns easier, but also makes it easier to crash into walls because you turn too far. Overall, this drift is still really good. For feel, I'd give it a 7, an 8 for usefulness, a 6 for cool factor, and a 9 for stage design. This gives Generations an A tier. Up next are the Riders games. This is definitely the most skillful interpretation of the drift, since it is harder to control, but also gives a great reward for pulling it off. This drift uses up some of your meter on the right hand side, and if you hold it for a long enough time it gives you a boost of speed. These stages have like 1 or 2 areas that are good for drifting, so in that regard, Riders does lose some points. I've only played the original game, not the sequel, but I'd say that they will behave the same, so I'll lump them together into Tier B with scores of 8, 6, 8 and 5. For Free Riders, I'll place it straight into F tier, just based purely on the Connect feature, which would truly destroy its feel and gameplay. Sonic Forces stupidly removes the manual drifting and replaced it with this putrid automatic wire drift, which can't even be used as Sonic. Because this game has an automatic drift, the feel is absolutely whack. It just isn't fun to pull off. And also, this happened, so yeah, great game! For Sonic, there are these sections in Metropolitan Highway which are just begging for a drift, but he just runs around it on a set spline. You don't even need to move the control stick. For the Avatar, the only thing I like is the grapple animation, and that's just because I like grapple mechanics. Forces gets a D tier with the scores 2, 2, 5 and 3. Next up, I have lumped both All-Stars racing games. Since I haven't played the first one, I'll be basing the ability on Transformed. The drift in this game is like an amalgamation of both Unleashed and Riders. If you hold the drift for a certain amount of time, you get a boost of speed, with there being 3 levels of boost, each one giving more speed. You can also snake like an Unleashed, but instead of picking up speed, you can keep up your drift boost, which gives you way more opportunities to gain huge boosts. In these levels, there are many places made specifically for using this move. And also, since you can snake, you can even use the move skillfully in straightaways as well. This is a really fun thing to pull off while racing. In Transform, you can also drift in boat form, and somehow in plane form as well, which just adds to the variation and uniqueness. For feel, I'll give it a 9. For usefulness, I'll give it a 7. For cool factor, it gets a 6, and for stage design, it gets an 8. This puts the All-Stars racing games into A tier. For Team Sonic Racing, all of the things mentioned previously for the All-Stars game can be applied here. However, I think that TSR has slightly worse stage design, and also feels slightly worse. So TSR gets a B tier. Now, Sonic Frontiers is a weird one, since in the main campaign the drift is only featured in one single cyberspace stage, and not even in the open zone. This is Cyberspace Zone 3-5. In this stage, there are these special dash pads which automatically put Sonic into the drift, which already takes away points since you can't enter it manually. When you are in this state, Sonic controls absolutely dog shit. It is so hard to actually move him where you want. The stage isn't even new, it's just a straight up rip from Unleashed, just with horrible controls. The drift is so redundant in this stage as well, because it's faster, more fun, and easier to just jump over the dash pads, which puts this drift into the bottom of F tier, with the scores 1, 1, 2, and 1. However, in the final Horizons DLC, they added Amy, Tails, and Knuckles as playable characters, and Amy actually has a drift which can be used in the open zone. To use the mechanic as Amy, you have to be at full rings, which means lots of people probably don't even realize it exists. While the drift is actually really fun, the open zone just wasn't built for it, which means it isn't very useful. Amy Drift gets a 7 for feel, 3 for usefulness, 4 for cool factor, and 1 for stage design, which gives it a D tier. This wraps up my ranking of all the Sonic drifts. If you enjoyed, please hit the subscribe button, and goodbye.